Adrian D'Souza, and over my time in digital advertising, I've watched how our approach with both data and programmatic has changed quite a lot in terms of dealing with how we deal with digital marketing. I'm here about to talk about that changing landscape, right from customer insights to activation. We talk a little bit about, or quite a lot about big data. In fact, it's a bit of a buzzword. But today we're going to try to talk about two key themes. One is how big data can give you deep insights and sometimes surprising facts about your audience. And two, big data paired with programmatic advertising can fundamentally transform how marketers approach strategy and advertising, and how, frankly, you can be extremely agile in your approach with advertising. So let's dive in. So, flashback to 10 or 15 years ago, data used to be scarce. And so if you wanted to understand more about your audience, your customers, what did you do? You took on a big project. And you spent a lot of money. You did qualitative, quantitative, ethnographic research, and it involved a lot of resources, and tens of thousands, and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros to actually get those studies. And while you gain some really good, interesting insights, what does it boil down to? People saying things about themselves. And sometimes people just lie. This is essentially the website SoMe Cards basically asks people to talk about their Tinder profiles. To the left is the picture of those Tinder profiles as they appear on Tinder. To the right is those folks looking at Tinder when they're looking for a date. It's just human nature. People tend to sometimes represent or misrepresent themselves. So now, we know data is everywhere, but here's the key point. It's not about what people say, but about what people do. And that's what data is really good at gathering and basically helping you gather those insights. So in the past, with television, you used to go watch a show on television. Now, you actually can watch that show on your computer. And guess what? That creates a data stream. In the past, you used to call to make a reservation at a restaurant. Now you use a digital device to actually make those reservations. And guess what? That creates another data stream. In the past, you used to go to a showroom to research cars. Now, digital services can provide you all that information right online. That creates another data stream. In the past, you used to have to walk to your thermostat to adjust the temperature. Now, you can do that remotely via a smartphone. Literally, sometimes 3,000 miles away in your bed in a hotel room. And that creates another data stream. So great. Interest in big data is certainly growing, because everyone kind of understands now the future is all about trying to analyze that data. And so that's really what big data is all about, right? Big data is essentially collecting, analyzing, managing that data, and trying to get true value out of that data. But here's the data challenge. If you get it right, it's okay. You'll get a lot of value of it. But if you don't, guess what? Then it starts to actually get a little bit out of hand, because sometimes you deal with inaccuracy and sometimes you deal with lack of scale. So here's an interesting study. In fact, this was a study run by MediaSmith. I know Dave Smith, who's a great partner of ICOM, is in the audience. And this is just dealing with something plain vanilla, demographic data, which marketers have been using for 90 years. There are over 30 providers out there providing data. And we have recognized companies in the marketplace like Comscore and Nielsen that measure that data. Well, this was a study done for 11 providers by MediaSmith and measured by Nielsen for accuracy. Here's the scary part. 3 to 4 of those providers were as good or as bad as control, which is basically, think of how bad the data has to actually be worse than a random number generator. And the Wall Street Journal caught on to that, and they actually did an article in the CMO Journal about it. So we've got it. Like, data experts also have challenges with data. What about marketeers? Well, here's what happens with, this was a recent study with the CMO Council, and 30% or fewer basically said that they actually feel they're managing and getting the appropriate value from data, and less than 40%, fewer than 40% of CMOs actually said they're seeing true ROI from all the customer data they're collecting. Why do CMOs care so much about data? A quote from Deanie Elsner, CMO from Kraft. Data strategy is the future of everything we're banking on. We don't call data data. We call data people. That's what this is all about. Ultimately, truly trying to understand data about consumers, customers, and influencers. And you know what? You can learn something unexpected. Star Wars. Show of hands, how many of you saw the latest movie? Okay. Half to 3/4. Here's a graph. If you look, your upper right quadrant is skewing more female and older. Your lower left quadrant is younger and more male. Not many surprises here. Finn, skewed younger and male. Leia, older and more female. Darth Vader now, that was really interesting. He has more of a female audience than even the new female heroine, Rey. Okay, so what did we learn? Darth Vader, skewed female, have higher income, more likely to work in criminal justice. Who would have thought that lawyers are fans of the dark side? Okay, so interesting insights, but how do you take action? This is an example of a pharmaceutical company, a large pharmaceutical company that did an advertising campaign with us for a leading drug that combats basically a condition with older males. And so we ran the campaign, and here's an interesting insight. We actually found very often that the audience, after analyzing their site data as well as the audience campaign data, that actually the audience was skewing younger and more female. That was an interesting insight. Now, by the way, our optimization automatically corrected for that. But they took it a step deeper. They took that insight and realized that actually the influencer very often happened to be the caregiver, and quite often happened to be daughters who were doing the research on behalf of their fathers. And so this savvy advertiser took it a step further and actually adjusted their strategy around it. And basically, they updated their creative, updated their marketing content, and so now their creatives actually show their creatives actually show show an image of a daughter doing research on her laptop. So what did we learn? Identify your key influences, adjust your marketing strategy, and then capture more leads if you can be nimble and really agile around it. So just one last point on that Nielsen study we already talked about. The key point is not just accuracy, but scale. It's great to have accuracy if you end up with 5 extra users. The key point is you need a partner who's actually going to also be able to scale it up. So just the last few things, I wanted to talk about a recent announcement that Quantcast made around, which is called the Audience Grid. We're trying to offer consumer information in an open and transparent way to marketeers. We partnered with a number of notable consumer providers like Oracle, DataCrowd, IRI, and essentially what we're offering are things like consumer consumption habits, or television viewing habits, auto ownership, things like that. So this is an example of the deep research we offer, which is now you can actually get TV consumption of users at scale in a very granular way, essentially based on a Quantcast measurement profile. And this we offer for free to any marketeer. And the key point is not just basically having great insights, but how do you take action? Well, you know the famous RFPs that have very precise targeting segments. Well, now, for example, you can go after women with little time for chocolate, or you can go after female cheese buyers who entertain frequently. So the key point is that it's not just about accuracy, it's not about insights, it's also about taking action and doing it at scale. So I'm going to leave you with this. Essentially, the key three things we've learned today. One is get to know more about your consumers. 2, act immediately with advertising. Work with a partner that can actually take real action on your behalf. And then the faster you iterate, the more you're going to win. Quantcast is certainly one of those partners that can help with that, but hopefully you've got some learnings out of this. And so I thank you.